Welcome to the Dirt World Podcast. I'm Jason Richmond, a fourth-generation road builder that started on shovel and now serves as the Chief Operating Officer at Buildwood. This is the Ariat Dirt World Summit Series, where we will dig into the construction world, exploring the challenges, successes, and strategies that shape exceptional leadership and builds a thriving workforce in the dirt world. Join us as we sit down with some of the brightest minds and trailblazers in the construction industry. Our guests are leaders who have navigated the trenches, built businesses, cultivated strong teams, and fostered innovation to build the infrastructure that shapes our world. From technology, equipment, suppliers, and contractors, their experiences and insights will inspire, empower professionals at every level. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Alex Kraft, the innovative founder of Heave.co, an app that connects you with on-demand heavy equipment technicians. Alex's professional experience has provided unique insight into the opportunity to innovate and help nudge the old school heavy equipment industry into the new age. It's one thing to discover a problem. It's another to actually live that problem day after day and understand the intricacies that make the entire industry work. Given his background of serving the construction equipment space for almost 20 years, I'm excited to talk with our guest, Alex. Welcome to the Dirt World Podcast.
Hey, Jason. Good to be here.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining us, man. Where are you calling from today?
Balmy Tampa, Florida, where it's about 109 degrees with the heat index right now.
I can't imagine working in the dirt world in this heat out there today. So thoughts are with everyone who's out there getting after it. Hey,
much respect.
Totally. Lots of respect for the field crews. Hey, this is going to be a great conversation. Want to learn a little bit more about you, want to understand about your background, how you got into the industry. We'll talk a little bit about business, how the business is doing. We'll talk leadership and workforce development, and then we'll wrap it up with the Ariat Dirt World Summit. So as we get started, tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me a little background on your story and how you got into the dirt world.
Sure. Got into the dirt world completely by accident. I'm sure it's like a lot of people, although, from just learning about you, fourth generation, that's pretty impressive. I look forward to asking you about that. Got into it by accident. I was a collegiate athlete, played basketball. Similar story to many others, I'm sure. I tear my knee, and then basketball, which I was planning on being a future, probably less likely, or it was going to take a lot longer to get there maybe than I was able to commit to. So, knew someone who knew someone who it was more of an opportunity for me at the young age of 23 to move to South Beach, Miami, and then got a job with a heavy equipment dealer selling heavy equipment in South Beach. So it wasn't a bad deal, being 23, living on South Beach in that area. I was from the Northeast, so it was like, unbelievable experience at that young age. But that's how I got into the dirt world.
Love it. That sounds incredible. And how long have you been at your current organization, Heave?
So 3 years. So the dealership that I worked for, we were a Volvo branded dealership, covered the state of Florida. And then for about a 10-year period, we also had the Volvo territory in Eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York City. That was my experience. I worked through the organization, all different levels. I was the chief operating officer for the company the last 2.5 years. And then our dealership was sold right at the onset of COVID. And that's when, as I was trying to think about my next move, came up with the idea for Heave at that time.
Sounds great. So tell me, what is Heave?
So today we are different than what we started, which is not uncommon amongst founders. My original idea was just overall, like kind of your lead in, is that this industry has not had a lot of innovation. The way things are done today is the way things were done 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And so COVID was happening, and having started as an equipment salesman, it was amazing to me that you couldn't order equipment online. And so many of these customers are very, they're educated about equipment. There wasn't much that you're going to tell a customer like, hey, did you see these features on this wheel loader? Like they run them. They run them every day. And so we started more with that. But what we quickly, or not so quickly, realized was, what is the true customer pain? And it's in the service area. And so Heave is, we call it Uber for heavy equipment service, or on-demand heavy equipment mechanics. So contractors like your family company, road builders, you run loaders, excavators, pavers. When machines go down, you don't have to call into a dealer anymore. You can open up a Heave app. I've got a Cat 938 wheel loader. It has a def issue. Request service. And we show you, the customer, here's 3 or 4 heavy equipment mechanics. They're available in these times. Who would you like to book? And so that's what we're doing. We are all field service, and the goal is to continue providing mechanics who are qualified, insured for all brands to customers within 24 or 48 hours. So they don't have to wait a week or so for the next field tech.
That's great. So who are the Heave technicians, and how do you know if they're any good or not?
Good question. Today, what you find is that most Heave technicians, a high percentage, call it 80, 85%, are former dealership technicians. They started working for the Cat dealer, they started working for the Deere dealer or the Komatsu dealer. And for a variety of reasons, everybody has a different story, decided that, what, I want to go out and own my own business. And they've been operating in their market independently. Working on, what you find is a very small group of customers, equipment, like at their core, they're mechanics. They're not necessarily marketers or salespeople. And so what you find is that they probably started working on the same group of 5 or 6 customers that they used to work on when they were at the dealership. And, they learn about what we're doing. And now we're giving them access to a much larger group of customers, that need service.
That's fantastic. And so what brands can they work with, or what products can they work on when it comes to that?
And so we pride ourselves on any brand. Like we've fixed Cats, Road Techs, Hom, Deeres, Komatsus, Volvos, Takeuchi, Bobcat, all brands. We fixed a couple cranes. I would not have guessed that within our first 6 months we would have fixed a crane. We really started out primarily with earth moving equipment because that's what I knew very well. But as soon as customers experienced our app and found out what we were doing, we were getting pulled into on highway trucks. Customers will put in for a Freightliner or a Peterbilt, put in for a little skid steer, or like I said, up to a crane. So it's been a little bit surprising how fast it's happened, but it's been an amazing ride so far.
So how are parts handled on Heave jobs?
Sure. Parts are handled the normal everyday way that they are through the dealership typically. Like many contractors have their own mechanics. And so like when I was at the dealership, it wasn't uncommon for a customer to come in, pick up their own parts, and we weren't providing the service. So it's the same way that it works through our app. Like our technician, when they're booked, they go out to the job site, they diagnose the machine, and they tell the customer, hey, you need these 3 parts. What would you like to do? Would you like me to order them for you, or would you like to order them on your account with the dealer? Most of the times they order them on their own account with the dealer. We go pick them up and then finish the job.
That's incredible. We talk about the dirt world all the time. It's a made up phrase that, Aaron Witt has put together, and we try to explain it in simple terms. We call it, all things infrastructure construction. Sure. Curious, with Heave, I assume you guys are spanning multiple business segments, different industries, pretty wide.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anybody who runs equipment, that's whether they're I met with a landscaper this morning. Landfills run equipment, big road contractors, utility contractors. Anybody who's running a loader, an excavator, now on highway trucks. Those are our customers. Anybody who is in the infrastructure game.
So what's the catch? It's like, download the app on iOS or Android and, is there a fee? Is it just, pay for what you use? How does it work?
I'm not familiar with the catch yet. We got to come up with one.
I love it.
It's
I just
simple.
figured that the audience is sitting around going, man, this sounds too good to be true. I can download
One
an
of
app.
these days, we're going to come up with a catch. I'm going to think
I
of
can
it.
find
No.
somebody in a matter of no time that can come fix my stuff, get me back running. I'm like, what's the catch? So
No,
just
it's
wanted to make sure.
look, for customers, download the app, request service. We don't change anything in terms of like the general business environment. Customers request service, they can book a technician, and then when the repair's done, Heave invoices the customer. We invoice on standard net 30-day terms.
Yeah.
It's simple. For the mechanics and the technicians themselves, like we don't charge them a monthly fee. We don't charge them a subscription fee. By signing up on our network, we vet them, make sure that they have valid insurance. So they have to send us a copy of their general liability policy. They have tools and they have a truck. And then they have to opt into the job, and so that's the on-demand. There's some interesting nuances in the marketplace that I think help set us apart from like the traditional experience. And that's one of the things, like technicians just get visibility within their area to jobs. And then if they don't have the right tools or like, hey, like we have a guy in Houston, he was a former deer dealer technician. He's really not comfortable in anything outside of deer. So he doesn't respond to anything. So the deer jobs that come through, he'll confirm. But it's what we mean it that way. Like however much you want to work, you can go work through the Heave app, and just there's plenty of work out there.
Curious, how many technicians do you have out there?
A growing amount. So we've had, I think now, over 40 different techs invoice a job. We're operational today in Florida and Texas. I think that's important first to state. So Florida and Texas, we're doing service work every day. We've done some work in some other pockets like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and we'll have customers ask us if we can do jobs for them. But we've got about 120 technicians that are pre-qualified, set up in our app. We just don't have customer demand in certain markets yet. So we're always going to try to stay ahead of where we have customers requesting service by trying to qualify and vet technicians in other markets.
Makes a lot of sense. What's one question I haven't asked about Heave that I should have asked, and what's the answer?
Oh, that is a good question. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of threw you off there a little bit.
You know what? One thing that I'll hear from, it's kind of like back to the catch thing, right? So some people I find will have a perception that an independent heavy equipment technician is a lesser technician, and I don't know. I don't understand that one. I can tell you that by function of someone having their own company, an LLC, and being independent, we find that they're just as qualified, if not more, than a dealership technician because they have to be. It's their name on the truck. Like if they run the risk every day, if they don't do a good job, then they won't be rehired. And that's just not the case in the traditional dealership setting, right? Like there's a brand behind someone. And so in these individuals, they have to be able to work on multiple brands. You can't necessarily specialize because you're really limiting your earning potential that way.
That's good. That's good. Appreciate you sharing all that. Sounds like an incredible opportunity for people in the dirt world, and you've got a huge growth opportunity as a business as you move forward. So really excited to have you as a part of this.
Yeah, we're very excited to be partners with your team. It's the question obviously is, well, why? Because for marketing purposes, like you can choose to spend your money in a lot of different ways. For us, this industry is a little antiquated, and in my opinion, you're the perfect partner because you are appealing to the companies that want to do something different, that kind of want to break away from this is the way it's been done forever, it's never going to change. And so it makes a lot of sense for us to reach out and participate, because your core audience are the customers, the contractors in the different areas who are looking for something different, who are trying to say, hey, you know what, maybe there's a different way, a better way, or a new way. And so it makes a lot of sense for us as a technology company and someone who's trying to innovate and bring a different way to the industry to partner with you guys.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's definitely some tried and true ways of doing things, but it's time to evolve as an industry. And this is just one of those ways that I think people will be looking into as we move forward. It kind of leads me into thinking about, the Dirt World Summit, and you talk about partnership and, coming together. We've been talking about this challenge of workforce development for, a number of years, and trying to figure out what's the solution. And there's been a lot of stats that are out there. ABC report said 560,000 new people are needed in the construction industry this year. And by the year 2031, 40% of the industry is going to retire. And so it's always been this is what's coming, but now it's here. It's here this year, 2023, right now. And so as we think about, this challenge, BuildWit has really focused in on what we call the people life cycle of how to attract, onboard and hire, train and retain, great people, ultimately building brand and culture around it. And the summit was, just this concept and idea of let's unite the industry. Let's come together as organizations and people to really tackle this problem together. And we're looking at it, in two ways. One is, how do we build leaders? So let's talk about leadership and what that looks like. So let's take care of those that we have, and let's make sure that we're creating a place that people want to be. And let's also, focus on learning and growing and building that workforce development where we're bringing in new people and giving them the tools that they need. So I want to jump into leadership for a minute. Talk to me for a minute about, what qualities do you believe make a great leader in this industry?
Yeah, so my views on leadership have changed quite a bit.
Okay, cool.
When I was younger, so I always played athletics. I was always in a leadership position. I was a captain of like every team that I've ever been a part of. And since working in business, my views have changed tremendously. I do think that overall, like in the last 10, 15 years, leadership has changed, like our views on leadership for the better. Like, I can remember back athletically, leadership to me was someone barking orders. And it was usually like, you don't question anything. It was, you do this. And if you don't do this, you can't, then I'm going to find somebody else who will. And so that was how I was raised, right? And then you get into a position of leadership. And I think for my views, in many ways, have always, like, I think I'm a good observer. And so I've learned just as much watching people do things incorrectly as I have learned doing things myself. So I've always kind of taken mental notes of, what I didn't like about people who are in leadership positions, so that when I got to that role, that I would act the opposite in many ways. But leadership to me, as it's evolved, is being able to, cliche time, right? But get buy-in. But when I was put into a role of leadership at a young age, what I learned was it's important to let people know what you don't know. Because when you're working with people alongside them every day, like, you have to be authentic, and you can only fool people for so long. And if you present yourself in a certain way, like as an authority on something, people are going to find out at some point you don't know what you're talking about. And then you kind of lose them. You lose credibility. And so to me, it starts with being authentic. And then it's okay to tell people, like, look, my strengths are this. This is where I need your help. And I think people have more respect for you that way. And then they feel more a part of it. Like, you have to get people engaged. They're not just going to follow you because you tell them what to do. And so, the other things I think are really important are people have to believe truly that you care about their performance. You want them to excel. You want them to contribute, and you want them, and you have to mean it too. You have to back up with actions. You can't just tell someone that, hey, I'm interested in you, being a high performer. You have to help them become one. And by doing those things, I think is what the foundations of great leadership are.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also know your organization, your guys are big fans of Jocko. Like that's one of the best leadership books I've ever read, Extreme Ownership. I gave that out to team members of the former company I used to work for. I had them read chapters about it. And he does a great job of going back. Like a good leader is always able to assess the situation. Like, do they need more from me at this moment, or do they need less from me at this moment? Getting them to come up with the plan so that they're then accountable for the results. Like those types of things, have played a big part in how I choose to lead as well.
Yeah, that's great. Love Jocko's books. Super excited to see him at the summit there for the mini muster, and his entire Echelon Front team. I follow them on social, and it's interesting because at BuildWit we give out extreme ownership as well, and we talk about the 4 laws of combat, and we're thinking through every decision and really trying to think through our values, but also just really stopping and checking the ego and thinking through what's the right thing to do at this particular point in time. So super excited to have Jocko at the event, and it's going to be an incredible experience.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like putting ego aside, right? So I'm thinking back to some of the poor leaders that I've served under that always kind of I always remembered. Like I've worked with people who I don't think I've ever heard them say that they made a mistake before, or I don't think I've ever heard them say, you know what, that was my bad. I made the wrong call there. And so like these are all things that are very important to me. It's like you have to have an environment where people like where you can say like, hey, I screwed that one up. Because otherwise you create, like I've worked in plenty of organizations where it's all political. Like those are the worst environments. They're toxic. Everyone's blaming everyone else. No one's taking an accountability. And then, that's why nothing ever changes, is because if no one has ever owned up to a mistake, then nothing's ever going to change. And so like those were very formative experiences for me.
It's interesting as you're talking about these lessons and ideas, they can be put into practice and create an environment where people are following, the rules of engagement and making it a place where people want to be. So I'm curious, like, how do you go about leading in a way at your organization, to make it a place that people want to be, to start changing that paradigm? And
yeah, it's about like applying all of those lessons that I've learned. So we're a technology company, right? I don't know the first thing about coding and engineering software. So we have like an equipment side of the house here, and we have a technology side of the house. And so, I don't pretend to know about how to code, or I tell people what to do on that side. So it's creating the environment where those individuals like feel like, hey, they're valued, like that they have total control over what they're doing. Like I give them it's a vision, right? Yeah, that's what has made this whole journey fun for me over the last 3 years, is I've got to tell the people with our team like, hey, this is how the industry works. Like, I think it's kind of dumb that if you have a machine that's down, that you have to call in on a landline to a service department. I think that's dumb. Like there's got to be a better way. And so I like lay out like how the industry works. I'm like, hey, can we make it where a customer can just order service through an app? And then this team is like, oh yeah, let's do that. And then they go build it. Like that's been really fun. And the members of our team on that side feel really impactful. Like they're helping to change an entire industry in the way it operates. And, by giving them the vision, by saying, hey, I can't tell you how we're going to get there, but this is how it works. And then you guys can build the solution. And so they're a part of it, and they feel like every day they're doing something that matters.
That's great. We've talked a little bit about what not to do. Is there a leader out there that's positively, impacted your career? And what was it that inspired you about that leader?
I've had a few. I've had some coaches in the past. So I played for a guy who's now the head coach at Richmond University in Virginia. His name's Chris Mooney. He was incredible as a coach, as a mentor. He has some similar characteristics as some other business people that I've worked for. I don't know if you know any people like this, but there are people where no matter if it's a good time or a very bad, like a tough, trying time, they always seem to know the right thing to say at that moment. I've worked for a couple of people like that, and I've played and I think that's a really important skill to have, is like to recognize the moment and then what the team needs to hear. And sometimes what they tell you isn't what you expect. Like I remember, like going back to school, like we were a really good basketball team, and we come out of the gates and we had really high expectations, and we lost our first 2 games, and we had notoriously very difficult practices. And so like it was a Sunday, we had just lost our second game in a row to start the season. And we're all like, oh no, we're dreading this. Like this is going to be the worst practice of our lives. And I remember he walks in and he had a football, and he's like, you know what? We're not even going to shoot we're not even going to play basketball today. We're just going to pick teams and we're going to play football today. And I was like, huh, that was pretty cool. Like he completely removed the pressure, and it was not expected. And then I think we went out and won like 18 in a row or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
So
it makes me think about emotional intelligence,
yeah,
and situational awareness and reading the room. And so it sounds like an incredible leader.
And I've been around a few people like that, and it's a gift. It's a gift to know what the team needs at that moment. And some people are the opposite, right? Some people double down on like, oh no, he's going to yell louder or yell more.
Right. Yeah, totally. So when it comes to workforce development, whether it's developing existing people or, trying to attract people into the industry and training, give me your rundown on where we are as an industry and any thoughts that you've got around that.
Sure. This isn't going to be a shock, and it's nothing new to you guys, right? I think the industry, the story is grossly undertold. To me, and this is why I stayed in the industry. Because when the dealership was sold, or even before that point, like I could have left, I could have done other things, but I always liked the industry. I liked the people within it. The blue collar nature. You're dealing with real people. They produce real things of value that touch all of our lives, roads and housing developments and shopping centers. And it's not told enough the impact of what the people in the industry produce for our culture. What we're doing, because this is a major part for Heave, is obviously, so we have in essence, it's a labor marketplace, right? It's customer can hire skilled labor to fix their equipment. I'll draw a similarity. We just hired a software engineer. Software engineering's all the rage. Teach your kids to code. Why do people tell them that? It's because people believe it's going to be in demand for the next however many years, right? Which is true. And you can make a great wage. I can tell you right now what we hired a software engineer for is not cheap. Now, workforce development in this industry, I believe that heavy equipment technicians are engineers. They are highly skilled. To me, there's really no difference between them and a high value software engineer. And what we want to do, if we can keep driving successfully forward is like, hey, we enable heavy equipment technicians to achieve a much higher wage, right? And you see that the reason why heavy equipment techs go independent is to double and triple their income that they were making at the prior place. And so if we can bring more demand into the marketplace and make it more visible, then we give these individuals a chance to earn closer to what the market pays for their services.
That's fantastic. So are you having trouble finding mechanics and technicians?
Not really. It's always, I don't say that like flippantly, like, oh no, like we're always going to have to keep recruiting more. Like you ask at this current moment in time, we are well positioned to support a good increase in customer demand for equipment service. And then we just have to keep, we have certain metrics. Like I know what the metrics are. I know where, like how many field technicians exist for a dealership and how many customers they have. So I know how many field technicians we need to have in a market to support X amount of customers, because the most important thing for us is decreasing downtime, is can we continue getting a field tech out to that customer within 24, 48 hours. If we ever get to the point where it's a week, then we're no different than what the existing offer is. So today we have plenty for to support demand, and then as we keep growing, we'll need to keep adding.
That's good. That's really good. So whether it's at Heave or just the industry as a whole, you can speak on either side of it. What's the biggest challenge facing the workforce?
Like I said, like it's the story. It's people don't understand the opportunities available. Because I think that's what it drives so many decisions. It's what could the potential be if you step into this role? What that could look like?
So what can the industry do to start telling their story, whether it's social, whether it's online, whether it's, what are some of the companies that are out there that are doing it really, really well? And, in order for us to unite and to start really making a difference, it's one thing for a few to start doing some stuff that's really connecting with the next generation, but you've got a chance to really start sharing. What do you think are those things that we need to be doing to make a difference?
So I think it's kind of funny, right? Like a lot of contractors, they've always been close-lipped, right? They don't like to talk about themselves for some reason. I don't know, but like those companies need to learn to market, right, and tell their story. This is what we did. Like we just helped 500 families, move into a house. We built that that housing development. You guys are at the forefront of it, right? I think also our society is becoming more educated that college isn't necessarily the be all end all, right? Like I think there's been a real awareness moment for our culture here. Like, hey, everybody's in tremendous amounts of debt, and to have a philosophy degree, what can you do with that? So, I think I see more awareness coming. It's just, to me, it's just keep beating that drum, keep sharing the stories about what is produced and the benefit to overall society.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. Great thoughts on leadership and workforce development.
You're going to see us talk a lot about like, hey, because I wonder, like, if people knew, like, hey, you could make $200,000 a year or more as a heavy equipment technician, do you think more people would try to pursue that career?
Bingo.
I think so.
Yeah, totally agree. It's, that transparency is something that, for years it's been kind of quiet, protect and defend, kind of just come to work, do your job, but showing the industry what those career paths are, the direction that they can go, where they start, how they learn and grow on the go, the mentoring and leadership that they're going to be provided. I think that things are changing and for the better, and really excited to see where this thing goes. But it's people like you that are, out front telling your story, jumping on board at the Dirt World Summit, really trying to get people more aware as to what a great industry this is that's going to really make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So as we transition and start to talk a little bit about, the Dirt World Summit, I'm curious, you touched upon it earlier, but would like for you to kind of double back on, why did you sponsor the summit and what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about, because so that'll be October. We'll have been in the market now, for almost a year. Yeah, I'm excited about meeting customers and sharing with them our story and what we can do. Because we're not new anymore, right? We're proving it every day. And it's just being in an audience with like-minded people. Like I said, I love what we love about the Dirt World Summit and the Build With people are, it's a community of companies who are open, who want to get better, who want to innovate. And so it's just what you learn is whatever product you have or whatever company you're starting, you don't want to waste time banging your head against a wall with people who just don't want to hear it or aren't open to the message. And so, because that's how things change too and move forward, is you get enough of those people who are on the same page and who want to innovate, that you get enough of them together, and then that's how you move forward. So that's what we're excited about with the summit.
I love it. Day one, there's some options. You've got the Dirt World Open, which is going to be the golf outing that we're having at the Golf Club of Houston. It's all the funds that we raise there is going to go to Dream on 3, which we're really excited, about that and working with those teams. And then there's some workshops on day one that people can choose from. Day 2 is the full muster or the mini muster with Jocko Willink and Echelon Front. And then day 3, we've got an incredible lineup, going through the phases that we've been talking about, attracting, hiring, training and retaining great people, with some incredible speakers like Bob Chapman, who wrote the book Everybody Matters. We've got Joe Hart, the CEO of Dale Carnegie. We've got Dave Turin. We've got Marcus Sheridan, who wrote the book They Ask You Answer. So it's a really cool agenda, fully packed. Is there anything in the agenda that, I know we talked about Jocko already, but is there anything in the agenda that kind of gets you excited?
Yeah, the leadership stuff. Like I think, leadership, it's hard for companies to train leaders. So like when you have this kind of opportunity to go and really be exposed to those type of people who do it, that's something that stood out to me. I am a voracious reader. I consume a ton of podcasts. I'm always looking to learn. So, having those types of resources in one room over the course of a couple of days, absolutely,
that's cool.
Piques my interest.
Yeah. Well, and you've said it before, but the networking that's going to happen, the peers that you're going to be able to talk to, just learning and, from each of them, like, hey, what are you doing? What challenges are you having? What are you overcoming? How are you doing it? I think those conversations, the speaker lineup is great. The agenda is great. But to your point that you've made several times is get the right people in the room and good things are going to happen. Definitely.
And I think too, there's a benefit of it being for people from all over. I think sometimes when you have a very local setting, if everybody is there from the same area, people don't share as much because they compete against each other.
Right.
Whereas if you open it up and you have people from all over, it's a more honest exchange of ideas because you don't feel like you're competing with those individuals.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, I can't thank you enough for your sponsorship, for your support, for your openness, for your transparency, for sharing your thoughts and ideas about leadership and workforce development. We are really excited to see you at the summit in Houston this October. And this wraps up another Ariat Dirt World Summit Series podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable leadership and workforce development insights. We hope you'll join us in Houston this October. And the summit will feature engaging panel discussions, hands-on workshops, inspiring keynote speakers, all focused on equipping you with the tools and strategies to drive success in the construction industry. You can visit dirtworld.com to learn more about it. And thanks for joining us today. Until next time, keep leading in the dirt world, building leaders, projects, and communities. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Look forward to the summit.